الله ربنا هو الإله، له من الأسماء ما اصطفاه، الواحد الحي كذا المليك، والملك المالك لا شريك.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا محمد وآله الطاهرين. Respected elders, scholars, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Today, the 27th of the holy month of Ramadan, according to the dua reported by Ibn Abbas from the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wa alihi, we ask for three things. Allahumma rzuqni fihi fadla laylatil qadr. O Allah, bless me on this day with the merit and the reward and the excellence of Laylatul Qadr. وَصَيِّرْ أُمُورِي فِيهِ مِنَ الْعُسْرِ إِلَى الْيُسْرِ, and change my affairs from difficulty to ease and facilitation. And number three, we pray to him that وَقْبَلْ مَعَاذِيرِ, I have made mistakes, I want to apologize, accept my apologies. وَحُطَّ عَنِّي الذَّنْبَ وَالْوِزْرِ, and forgive my sins and the heavy burdens that I have loaded myself with. Ya Ra'ufan bi'ibadihi as-salihin, O the one who is affectionate and compassionate with his virtuous servants. So the first thing we ask for on this day is that we should get the fadila and the merit of Laylatul Qadr. This is based on the assumption that the eve of the 27th is Laylatul Qadr. Or no, it is based on the assumption that the past nights had one of the nights which was of Qadr. After doing the acts of worship on the nights of Qadr and continuing with the a'mal during the daytime, now in the 27th I want the result and I want the fazila of that night to be rewarded to me. Amongst the Muslim scholars, there is a difference of opinion which says that Laylatul Qadr could be one of the nights in the holy month of Ramadan. Definitely Laylatul Qadr is in the month of Ramadan because the Quran was revealed in Laylatul Qadr according to Surah Qadr and Surah Dukhan. And the Quran was revealed in the holy month of Ramadan according to Surah Baqarah. So definitely Laylatul Qadr is in the holy month of Ramadan. But which night is it? There's a difference of opinion. Some Muslim scholars say it is the first night of the month of Ramadan because this month is a holy month. In this month the scriptures were sent down. Some say no, it is the 17th night because the 17th day is Yawmul Furqan, Yawm al-Taqal Jam'an, the day of the battle of Badr, where truth and falsehood was clearly distinguished. Some say no, it's 19th or 21st or 23rd. Some say no, it's 24th. Some say 25th. Some say 27th. Some say 29th. Some say no, it's 30th. 30th because every day at the time of iftar, Allah promises to release and liberate from the fire of hell those people who have fasted. But on the last night of the holy month of Ramadan, He releases from the fire of hell and liberates from hell as many as the total number released throughout the month. So the last night is the best night. But these are speculations. The definitive answer is that Laylatul Qadr physically may appear the same. Maybe there are certain physical signs also. but more important is the spiritual difference. And it's only those who are spiritual leaders appointed by God, to whom the angels come, they can specify and determine for us which of the nights of the Ramadan is the night of Qadr. According to the riwayat of the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, it is one of the nights in the last 10 nights. 19th night, 21st night, 23rd night. But because some riwayat of the Ahlul Bayt say yes, it could be in one of the last 10 nights of the Qadr, 27th night could possibly also be one of the nights of Qadr. And notice that the act of taqdeer and predetermination of the decrees for our life, every affair of our life for the year, whether it's health or sickness or poverty or richness or success or failure, adversity or prosperity, all of these affairs are not only determined in the night of Qadr in the holy month of Ramadan. Before Ramadan, in the month of Sha'ban, on the eve of the 15th also, there is some taqdeer that takes place. So also, there could be some taqdeer taking place on the 27th night. The possibility does exist, so we can't rule it out. So this riwayah says that give us the fadila of Laylatul Qadr and the blessings on the 27th. وَصَيِّرْ أُمُورِ فِيهِ مِنَ الْعُسْرِ إِلَى الْيُسْرِ. And Allah grant me facilitation and ease my affairs from difficulty to ease. In the Quran, in several surahs, Allah promises that after difficulty there will be ease. إِنَّ مَعَ الْعُسْرِ يُسْرًا. فَإِنَّ مَعَ الْعُسْرِ يُسْرًا. That's the first time. إِنَّ مَعَ الْعُسْرِ يُسْرًا. Second time. Twice the statement is declared and asserted. Surely after difficulty there will be ease. No, sorry, I've not translated correctly. Surely, not after difficulty. With the difficulty there will be ease. Already with the difficulty, the cause of the ease has already begun. It will show itself clearly as you go along. So within the difficulty that we experience, the suffering, the deprivations that we experience, the losses, the ability to have sabr and the ability to have tawakkul on Allah and iman in the promises of Allah, that in itself builds us up, fortifies us, strengthens us, and makes us feel, though we are suffering, anybody else suffering is really in pain. But for us, with the necessary iman and taqwa and tawakkul and sabr, we find that it is not difficult. No, a second time it is repeated. Surely, inna ma'al usri yusra. Interesting, the whole of the Quran, usr is mentioned 12 times. Yusr is mentioned 36 times. So it's as if with every usr, not only you get one yusr, but 3 times more yusr. Kwanini, in Surah Talaq, when there is separation, but during the period of iddah, the husband is required to pay for the expenses of the wife. The instruction is pay as much as you can according to your capacity. If it is difficult for you, Allah will open up the way for you. سَيَجْعَلُ اللَّهُ مِنْ بَعْدِ الْعُسْرِ يُسْرًا. But the condition is taqwa. Surah Talaq says if you have taqwa, Allah will open up the way. But in Surah Layl, chapter 92, Allah says, no, فَأَمَّا مَنْ أَعْطَى وَاتَّقَى وَصَدَّقَ بِالْحُسْنَى فَسَنُيَسِّرُهُ لِلْيُسْرَى. Whosoever gives in the way of God and has fear of God and believes in the promise of God, for them Allah will facilitate and bring ease. So the cause of yusr after usr or with the usr is charity, is taqwa, is belief in the promises of God. Charity, qanini, well, you help others to remove their difficulties. Allah in return helps remove your difficulties. And number 3, we say, waqbal ma'adhiri, oh Allah, on this day accept my apology. Apology can be of 2 types. Excuses are of 2 types. One is a genuine and one is a false. False excuse is, I knew what was wrong, yet I did it. Sorry. Now you come up with an excuse, it's a lie. A true excuse, I knew what was wrong, but I forgot. I knew what was wrong, but I was overcome by circumstances. I knew what was wrong, but I thought that this exception or exemption applies to me, and therefore I did not obey, for example. If there is a genuine excuse, oh Allah, accept my excuses. If there is no genuine excuse, then حُطَّ عَنِّي الذَّنْبَ وَالْوِزْرِ, then I ask you for forgiveness to remove the burden of the sin that I have carried upon myself. If you recall, we said that the riwayat say that sins are destructive, sins are enslaving, sins are compared to like a heavy burden, athqal, in the Quran, in Surah Ankabut. Here it has been compared to, again, a heavy burden, wizr. Wizr, a burden basically reduces the progress of an individual physically, so also spiritually. With a sinful past, with a past where this individual disobeyed God, not forgetfully. Forgetfully, you are excused. If in the state of fasting somebody forgets he's fasting and he drinks or eats, then the fast is not broken. In fact, the riwayah says Allah wanted to give you rizq, He made you forget, you ate as much as Allah wanted to give you rizq for, then He makes you remember, and then you're surprised and you're shocked and you are regretful. No, your fast is not broken. Allah has blessed you with rizq, enjoy it. But somebody knowingly and purposely does something to violate the fast, no. Those actions indicate that this person has no respect for God's law. This is a burden. I wish to get closer to God. He may reward me, He may help me, He may support me, He may enrich me. I want to get closer and win His pleasure. Yes, but you are the same person who just a few days ago or a few years ago deliberately, defiantly, knowingly, willfully, without any excuse, you disobeyed God, you displeased Him, and therefore you have no respect for Him. Now this is a burden. This is holding me back unless I genuinely ask for forgiveness from this past. And finally we say, Ya Ra'ufan bi'ibadihi salihin, or the one who is compassionate to His virtuous servants. So I can expect to deserve to get His special pardon and grace and mercy and facilitation and the fazila of Laylatul Qadr Qanini wasababu. He is Ra'uf. He loves the creation. He creates them and He wants to grant them, but they have to deserve to get it. And these are the ways we can prepare ourselves for it. Today I would like to remind ourselves about the basic rules about Zakatul Fitrah, because we are approaching now the end of the month. Notice that Allah says we will remove a person from difficulty and bring him to ease and comfort. And one of the ways to do so is to give charity. Zakat basically is charity that we give at the end of the month, and it is known as the Zakat of the Fitrah, perhaps because it is the Zakat on the day that we make iftar. There are a few basic rules that we need to remind ourselves about. Number one is, who is required to pay Zakatul Fitrah, on behalf of whom it should be paid, what should be given in Zakatul Fitrah, when should it be given, where should it be given, and to whom should it be given? 6 basic questions we need to remind ourselves of. As far as the necessity or the obligation of paying Zakatul Fitrah is concerned, in the Quran there is one ayah which says that before you go to pray, pay Zakat. In the tafsir of this ayah, before praying, pay, refers to Zakatul Fitrah and then Salatul Eid. قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ تَزَكَّى Surah A'la. Prosperous and successful is he who gives zakat. وَذَكَرَ اسْمَ رَبِّهِ فَصَلَّى. Then he goes to remember God and he prays salah. In the tafsir of this ayah, it has been applied to Zakatul Fitrah, and the riwayat say that Zakatul Fitrah is wajib and it's a faridah on the believers. Just like tashahhud, we have to send salawat on Muhammad and Ali Muhammad. And without that salawat, our tashahhud is incomplete. إِذَا تَرَكَهَا مُتَعَمِّدًا فَلَا صَلَاةَ لَهُ. So also, same comparison has been made that whosoever celebrates Eid without paying Zakatul Fitrah, then there is no fasting for him. Meaning that you don't get the full reward of fasting. Meaning that somehow this whole period of fasting should create in us that minimum degree of compassion and sense of charity to be able to help the poor. How should we do so? There is a minimum wajib method of doing so, and of course more than that will become mustahab and sadaqah. That minimum is determined by the most perfect human being sent by God, and that is the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So question number 1, who is it that is required to pay Zakatul Fitrah? The answer is whosoever on the eve of Fitr, Eidul Fitr, is capable to pay, is in his full senses, is not unconscious. Unconscious doesn't mean you're asleep. If you're asleep, then you can be woken up. Unconscious, you can't be woken up. Person is sane, person is conscious, person is in his full senses, person is a major, not a minor, is baligh. And most important, the person is financially well off and capable of providing for his personal expenses and the expenses of his dependents on him. It is wajib to pay zakat qurbatan ilallah. The most important question that has to be determined is who is the one who is defined as the person who is well off compared to the person who is needy and poor. Is a poor person the one who doesn't have his daily expenses or his weekly expenses or his monthly expenses or his annual expenses? And therefore the opposite will be the rich, the one who can afford to pay for his daily or weekly or monthly or annual is therefore rich. In the Sharia, the definition of the financially capable person is annual expenses. Lakini, annual expenses, either you already have the wealth and the cash, or you have the assets that can be encashed, or no, you don't have the cash in hand, but you have constantly paying salaried work that you're guaranteed for every month you will be paid your expenses and even more than your expenses. This person is financially capable and therefore must pay Zakatul Fitrah. The riwayah says that تحرم الزكاة على من عنده قوت السنة. It is haram for a person who has his annual expenses to take zakat. No, he has to give zakat. He can't receive zakat. That means the person who doesn't have his annual expenses can receive zakat. You have your annual expenses or more than your annual expenses, you must pay, not receive Zakatul Fitrah. However, Even the poor person, it is mustahab for the poor person to pay zakatul fitrah even if they have lesser than the minimum requirement, which is 1 sa', which is 3 kilograms. So let's say they have 1 kilogram of food, or the cash equivalent of 1 kilogram. Mustahab for the head of the household to give outside to another poor, but mustahab before he does that to give to the next member of the household, to the third, to the fourth, and the final member of the household then gives it to the needy and the poor. For sabab, amongst the needy and the poor, you also have classes. There are those who are earning only half their requirements, some 80% of their requirements. They have a shortfall of 20%, shortfall of 50%, shortfall of 80%. So it depends. So the lesser poor can give to the greater poor, but not wajib, mustahab. Important, that sense of charity, that sense of compassion. Even the one who has a little extra should pay to the one who has a little less extra. Question number 2. So we know now who is it wajib on to pay. Who should it be paid on behalf of? The riwayah says, Al-fitratu wajibatun ala kulli man ya'ul. Whoever is your ayal, whoever is dependent on you, for that person you have to pay zakat, whether he's young or old, whether a full wife or a temporary wife, whether your parents, father or mother, abika wa ummik, whether your servant who is dependent on you or your slave, whether he's Nasrani or Majusi, the riwayah says, doesn't matter if your dependent is not a Muslim. In fact, male or female, slave or free, rich or poor, even if the dependent is rich, but at the moment he's dependent on you, so long as the person is dependent, you the head of the household, you the host of this rich guest, will have to pay on behalf of this dependent, irrespective of their age, younger, old, irrespective of their belief, Muslim or non-Muslim, irrespective of whether it's wajib on you to pay their nafaqah or not. 2 clarifications here. One is the newborn. Yes, if the newborn is born before the night of Eid, the newborn has entered the world in the month of Ramadan when you were fasting. And this zakatul fitrah is as a completion of fasting. If the newborn was born after the crescent was sighted of Laylatul Eid, Shahru Ramadan is over, fasting is not wajib, it's haram now on the day of Fitr. No, then it is not wajib. But anyone who becomes your dependent just before the night of Eid, just before Maghrib, or at Maghrib, definitely they have to be paid for. For the guest, ihtiyat wajib, even if the person comes after Maghrib on the eve of Fitr. Lakini, guests are of 2 types. There are guests who just come for a temporary short stay. They've been invited for iftar on the eve of the Eid. This guest, if he just comes to eat food and will go away, then their fitrah is not wajib on the host. But there's another type of guest who comes and becomes dependent temporarily on the host. He comes and stays with the host 1 week before Eid, the whole month of Ramadan, a few days before Ramadan, a few hours before the Maghrib, at Maghrib, ihtiyatan. Such a person is dependent. Even if they're in their own city, in their own country, they are rich. But here they are dependent on you. They're not staying in a hotel, they're staying in your accommodation. They're not eating in the hotel, they're eating at your place. They're not using the facilities of somewhere else, they're using your facilities. Temporarily, they're dependent on you, totally. You're providing them transport, for example. They're your guests. So such a temporary dependent guest must be paid for. Even if on the night of Eid, the eve of Eid al-Fitr, they go out of your house and they do iftar at somebody else's place. that temporary iftar at another host's place, that other host will not pay the fitrah. You, the host who is there to keep them for several days, you have to pay their fitrah. Keyword, dependence. You are the one in charge of their maintenance. Doesn't matter if they are rich by themselves. A woman who gets married, she is engaged, the contract has been solemnized, but the rukhsati has not yet been celebrated. So she's still in the house of her parents, though technically she's the wife of the husband. The contract has been signed. For legal purposes, they wanted to apply for some facilities, so they quickly needed the paper. True, genuine, original nikah was solemnized. She's actually the wife already. Yes, she has not yet become dependent on the husband because she has not yet shifted there, and therefore the husband is not still required to pay for the expenses because she's not available in his house anymore as yet. Then this daughter, her expenses will be on the head of the household, the father, not the husband. Children who are here or abroad, doesn't matter even if they are abroad, but if their expenses are being provided by the head of the household in the home country, then the head of the household has to pay even for those children who have traveled abroad or who are studying abroad, because they are dependent for their expenses on the head of the household. Yes, if that student or that dependent is being sponsored by somebody else, such that now this father just sends some gift money, pocket money, not necessary, he can survive by himself, he's getting a stipend from a sponsor who is paying for his education, or no, he's qualified from the school or the university or a government bonus whereby he's undertaking his studies, then no. Then it is not wajib on the father to pay because he's not dependent now. He will just give extra as a gift. Question number 2, therefore, who should we pay for? Just one more clarification about the dependent. What if the dependent is rich and he tells the host, Asante sana, I'm a guest here but I've got enough. I brought so many gifts for you. I brought a gift so expensive, it is more expensive than all the fitrah you will pay for all your dependents. This is my gift to you. So therefore don't worry about me, I will pay my own fitrah. No, not sahih. He's rich, yes, but at the moment he's dependent on the host. The host has been given a tawfiq by Allah to be able to host this particular guest who is rich. So the host will pay. Even if the guest pays, doesn't absolve the host from paying. Yes, if there is a dependent for whom the host should pay and the host doesn't pay, and he can pay, he's being sinful. In that case, if the dependent is rich enough, then the dependent should pay. Same thing applies to the wife. The husband is poor, can't pay for all the expenses, just pays part of the expenses, but the wife is working. The wife is not supposed to contribute for the home expenses unless during the contract they make a condition. You will also work and you will also contribute. So then she's also required to contribute to the payment. So the wife, if the husband is not rich enough, is not paid for, then whosoever is the next in line to take care of this husband. Let's say the husband disappears. Then there are those who are responsible to pay to the husband. Let's say a parent is alive. So it is then wajib on the parent to pay for the wife. Because if the husband was there and the husband was poor and not absent, if there is a close relative who can pay for them, then they should pay. So in the case of the wife who is not being paid her full expenses of dependence, then the next sponsor should pay to the wife. However, if the wife is rich enough, the wife can pay on her own behalf because the husband cannot pay. And finally, the dependent who cannot pay his own expenses, but he's being sponsored not by one benefactor, but there are two benefactors or more benefactors. His expenses are, let's say, per month 300,000. There are three sponsors, each paying 100,000 for the expenses of this dependent. Then who pays Zakatul Fitrah, A, B, or C? No, the answer is each sponsor, according to the percentage that they pay, will accordingly pay the Zakatul Fitrah. So they will have to combine their resources and pay the Zakatul Fitrah on behalf of this dependent. Question number 3. So now we know who should pay and who should it be paid for. So now I want to pay. What should I pay? The answer is food. Zakatul Fitrah is a basic celebration. We are talking about the lowest class of society who cannot even afford to get food, their basic food. So whatever is the staple food, 3 kilograms have to be paid to that poor person. The staple food can be wheat or rice or dates or zabib, whatever basically is the staple food in that country or that city. And the staple food is to be determined not of the donor, but of the recipient. The poor, whatever is their staple food. Of all the different types of food, dates are preferable, they are better than others. The riwayah says, فَإِنَّ لَكَ بِكُلِّ تَمْرٍ نَخْلَةٍ فِي الْجَنَّةِ. For every one piece of date that you give out of those 3 kilos, for every date you get a whole tree. In Jannah, the reward multiplies. It's that sense of charity. Today I have so much I can give. I can even give more. That readiness, that willingness, that spirit of charity is there. Anytime I get the occasion, I will give. So Allah says, yes, this person is not like that sinner who will go to Jahannam. Because that sinner, every time he gets a chance, he will sin. The good person, every time he gets a chance, he will do good. So one date is transferred to a full tree in Jannah. Of course, this is an example. The reward will be even greater than that and even long lasting. So 3 kgs of the basic staple food. The quality should be good quality, not poor quality of food. The quantity minimum is 3 kilograms, but you can pay more than 3 kilograms to the needy and the poor, so much that the person can become rich, no problem. And you are allowed to pay in cash also instead of the food, because the riwayah says that ذَلِكَ أَنْفَعُ لَهُ إِنَ مَنُفَى زَيْدِ, because he may have needs other than food which you don't know about, so give him the equivalent of cash. It's allowed. In fact, it is better. يَشْتَرِي مَا يُرِيد. He can buy whatever he needs. And finally, about the food, if you're giving on behalf of 2 people, you can give on behalf of one, you can give dates, on behalf of another, you can give rice. But you can't give half, on behalf of one, you can't give half dates and half rice. On behalf of any one, you have to give only one type of food. But on behalf of different people, you can give different types of food. Question number 4. When should it be paid? So I know who should pay, for whom it should be paid, what should be paid. When should it be paid? قبل الصلاة, before Salatul Eid. From the time when the crescent is sighted and the eve of Eid al-Fitr enters, Shahru Ramadan is over. At that time, for the reward of fasting the next day on Eid, the condition which is remaining now is that the salawat of the salah should be recited, which is the charity should be given to the poor for my fast to be accepted. Ihtiyat wajib. It is haram to delay and to postpone without any genuine excuse the payment of Zakatul Fitrah beyond Salatul Eid. Unless the place where you go or where you live, there is no Salatul Eid, or you did not pray Salatul Eid. In that case, then the extension of the duration is till the dhuhr time, you must pay the amount to the poor. Lakini, to facilitate, the Sharia also allows that a person before the day of Eid, before Salatul Eid or Salatul Dhuhr of Eid, or before the eve of Eid, in the last week of Ramadan, the last few days of Ramadan, or no, right from the beginning of Ramadan, you can pay Zakatul Fitrah with the niyyah of Zakatul Fitrah, qurbatan ila Allah. Of course, but you would not know. The only problem with that, you will only know your permanent residents and dependents. If a new dependent appears on the night of Eid, then there will be an extra payment to be made. So you can make an advance payment. Lakini, it is better when you make an advance payment not to give it as Zakatul Fitrah, give it as a loan to the poor. You don't have to tell all these things to the poor, that I am making this calculation and I want you to sign on this date, on this hour, you receive a certain amount. Then when the time comes of the eve of Fitr, when the moon is sighted, I will ring you, then make a niyyah and talk to God, from so and so I receive so and so amount. Now he has switched the niyyah, it is no longer a loan. Now he says, for me it is Zakatul Fitrah, so I don't have to pay back to him. Oh Allah, I've accepted. No, that's not necessary. This is not a business contract where things have to be signed. You, the donor, have to make the niyyah. I'm giving it as a loan now. Later on the night of Eid or the day of Eid, you tell that person, I don't want the loan, or no, you can even tell that person later on, but you have already made the niyyah at the right time, that this is no longer a loan, this is a Zakatul Fitrah. Where should it be paid? It can be paid in the country of residence of the person, or if he is traveling to another city, but his dependents are in his home country, then he can pay in either place. He can pay it from his home country where he's absent currently because he's traveling, or he can pay from the country of destination and visit. He has got a choice. Or no, one of his dependents has traveled and the dependent has access to his account. He tells the dependent on that country, from my account deduct this amount and pay it off as Zakatul Fitrah. This is one scenario where you are allowed to pay outside your country. Otherwise, the primary rule is you must pay inside your country and city where you stay. The second situation is where you look around for a deserving, needy and poor person. But in your neighborhood and in your city, you can't find someone. So no problem. In that situation, you are allowed to transfer the funds to another place. But without investigating and without ascertaining that there is no poor who is needy in my city, straight away I go and send it to another country. No, not allowed. Ihtiyat wajib, not allowed. And this ihtiyat is a strong ihtiyat. Almost, apparently, none of the other mushtahis also allows it. They all make ihtiyat. So whoever is there in a city must check. Oh, I think Zanzibar has more poor. First check the poor here. You're staying here right now. Yes, if you travel to Zanzibar and around the time of Eid you are there, so then you can pay there if you want. But if you're currently here, make sure there's nobody here who deserves to get it, then you can transfer it to another city. Otherwise it is sinful, haram to transfer when there is a needy in your own city. And finally, the question of niyyah. It is an act of ibadah. And because it is an ibadah, which is a means of getting close to God, therefore in the niyyah there should be qurbatan ilallah, that I'm giving this as a way to get close to God. Because bunya al-Islamu ala khamsa, Islam is based on 5 pillars: salah, ibadah; sawm, ibadah; hajj, ibadah; zakat, therefore ibadah; and wilayah of the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. Let's pray to Allah to give tawfiq. Yes, please. Yes. The servants, yeah, sorry, thanks for the clarification that you seek. Servants, if they are paid and they are salaried and they are provided for all the expenses, then no, they're not dependent. Yes, they may be around with you on the night of Eid, but they're not counted as dependent because they are already being paid for. Their expenses are covered, their medical, their transport, their education, or whatever. There's a fixed salary. Sawa, the salary may not be enough, but that's your problem. Why did you not fix a salary which is enough for him? In that case, then you don't have to pay on his behalf, you have to pay to him, because now you're underpaying him and therefore he's needy, he doesn't have enough expenses. You can pay to him the Zakatul Fitrah, not for him Zakatul Fitrah, if he is already being paid a salary. Yes. Even if they are sleeping at night, it's part of the contract. The salary I pay you who only works during the daytime hours is different from the salary I pay you if you work during the nighttime hours. The contract of agreement is your nature of work is that you should also sleep at night and do work at night. So if she's salaried and she's paid for her expenses, then no, she doesn't deserve to be paid for. If she's underpaid, she can be paid to. Of course, if she qualifies. Apni mazhab wari home joy. Oh, I forgot to mention this. The miskin or the faqir to whom the Zakatul Fitrah has to be paid has to be from the mazhab of the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. Sorry, yes.
The present trend at the moment, the houses are sharing expenses, between husband and wife.
Yes.
Now, here we are talking about somebody who is dependent.
Yes.
That way you have got to pay the Fitrah.
True.
Here is the scenario is sharing. Now, who is actually supposed to pay?
The question is, if you have a husband and wife team, both of them are working and therefore sharing in the expenses, then who is required to pay? If the husband is incapable of providing the basic expenses is the shelter, the food, the dress, according to a decent standard of living. Yes, many a times husband and wife may decide to work together because they don't want a low standard of living, they want a high standard of living. They don't only want the basic necessities, they want the comforts of life. Comforts of life is not haram, it's good. No, in fact, they even want the luxuries. Sawa, so long as it is not being earned from haram and there's no israf and it's being spent in the proper way, sawa, it's halal. But it doesn't mean, therefore, that the wife actually is dependent. She is working because they want to raise their standard of living. The husband basically is earning enough to be able to afford to pay the basic expenses. So in that sense, she is dependent. If she's paying more for a higher standard of life. But no, let's say unfortunately both the husband and the wife are earning so little that the husband cannot afford to pay even the basic expenses. Here then the wife is partially dependent, she's not fully dependent on the husband. Then no, the husband will not be required to pay the full Zakatul Fitrah for the wife. The wife will have to contribute the remaining.
There's a small question.
Yes, please.
Somebody was a father who was paying for everybody's children. But when he comes back independent and he's earning, but me, I got more money for him. He says that now because he's working and he must depend on his own and he must be watching. I want to give Fitrah on him. Sunnah or that is watching, I want to also give.
So the son is now working, but he's staying with the wazir. The son is working, the son is earning, but he still continues to stay with the wazir. Whose house is it? Who is running the house? Who is paying the expenses? If the mzee is working, it's his house, he's running the house, he's paying the expenses. Yes, the son is working, yes, he's earning, but he's not contributing the running of the house. So it is the mzee who has to pay for the son.
No, if he does
Oh, he is paying for the running. Oh, he is working for himself and he's contributing to the house. Or you want to pay mustab. Mustab is no problem. Mustab you can pay. You can pay as a sadaqah. You can pay mustab, no problem. But it's not wajib. You can't do the wajib niyyah. So he is working, he's paying for himself or he's contributing to the running expenses of the house. So he has to be either fully or partially dependent on the percentage of the contribution that he's making to the running of the house. But that's wajib. You want to pay on his behalf as a mustahab, no problem. You're allowed to. Mustahab, no problem. Sadaqah. Yes, please. Yes. Yes. Okay. You get a guest after Maghrib, but it is the eve of Eid. Ihtiyat, you have to pay for him. No, ihtiyat wajib. A guest who comes to visit you on the night of Eid and he is dependent on you and he's not come there just for a single iftar, but is dependent on you temporarily, yes, ihtiyat wajib. Ihtiyat wajib. You have to pay on behalf of this dependent, rich guest. No problem. Yes, please. Yes. Yes. Yes.
So is he allowed to give fitrah?
Sadaqah, which is mustahab, can be given by a non-sayyid to a sayyid. But sadaqah, which is wajib, for example, zakatul mal or zakatul fitrah, a non-sayyid cannot pay to a sayyid. So if the non-sayyid has extra, he can give from Sahm Sadat. May Allah honor them, but not the wajib zakat. Unless it's a scenario where, for some reason, the individual cannot even get the wajib Sahm Sadat, and he deserves it and he is really needy. So either give him mustahab sadaqah, but you say, I don't have mustahab sadaqah. The only contribution I have is the wajib zakat. That's an exceptional situation, emergency, rescue of a person who cannot get his halal right, which is the sahm sadat or the mustahab sadaqah. As an exception, a small amount, which is enough to make him survive during that time period, is allowed from the wajib zakat. But that's an emergency. Yes. 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 That's a good question. The donor pays the zakatul fitrah, which is wajib. It has to reach also the poor before. It's not a question of keeping it aside or removing it. It's a question of removing the money and delivering to the needy. And it has to be done before the salah. قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ تَزَكَّى. One who gives the zakat, not who takes out the zakat and keeps it aside. After 1 day, 2 days, 1 week, I have to see, I have to check, I have to make inquiries. I will assess them, I will interview them, I will see them. Who is more deserving? Who is a close relative? No, who is the closer of the close relatives? Who is more knowledgeable? Who is more pious? I need time for that. I need a week for that. No. Wajib is before salah. It has to be delivered. Unless there's a genuine excuse. You did try, but you failed. Sawa. That genuine excuse, you can be excused till after Salatul Eid, after Salatul Dhuhr. But as soon as possible, it has to be delivered. And then there is a caution. The caution is now you can't make the niyyah of wajib, ada. Because our time is up. Now you make the niyyah of qurbatan ila Allah, mutlaq. Yes, please.
If I send them my money at night, fitrah,
Yes.
and I forgot to bring it here in the morning.
If you have set money aside for the fitrah and then you forget to bring it in the mosque, to deliver it to the needy or to hand it over to someone who will on your behalf deliver it to the needy, then you can borrow some money from someone and pay off, no problem. Yes, no problem, you can pay it off.
Then you can't borrow, you have to use the same money.
No, you pay back that person. No, this is a situation where you are stuck basically. Deliberately, deliberately, you can't change. But if you're caught in a situation where I have to do the wajib act, the wajib act is I have to pay before Salatul Eid. By mistake, I forgot to bring the money. No problem. Then I'm allowed to borrow and pay it off. Yes, please. Yes.
I think we discussed, but I was not quite sure. I'm traveling to UK
Okay.
on tomorrow.
Sawa.
I'll be staying with my daughter.
Okay.
London is not my home,
Sawa.
so I visit.
Sawa.
Now I will complete my 30.
Yes. Yes. Okay.
So I have completed my 30.
Yes.
So I was 30.
Yes.
In London they are celebrating Eid on Saturday.
True.
What happens? My daughter has to pay Fitrah on my behalf. When she should pay, these are the things.
The gentleman says he's traveling to the west, where they are one day behind us in the holy month of Ramadan, and therefore the Eid al-Fitr there, according to the local horizon, will be one day later than here, or even 2 days later. If we do one day earlier, Thursday here, then it will be 2 days later. So the question is, how many days you fast? And I'm going to be the guest who is rich in my own country, but visitor who is dependent on his relative in the country of visit and destination. Who should pay Zakatul Fitrah and when? Answer: as a guest who is visiting, though you are rich in your own country, though you may have money there, but you've decided to become a guest of your relative will pay Zakatul Fitrah when it becomes Eid on their horizon, when the sighting of the moon takes place on their horizon, or they complete 30 days. As far as your fast is concerned, you will fast according to the sighting of the moon.